I'm Jennifer of Celtic Knot Crochet, and today in this video I'll be showing you how to make the Celtic Star Snowflake. This is an easy crochet pattern if you are accustomed to working with size 10 cotton crochet thread like this. All the stitches used in this project are simple and basic crochet stitches. You'll find the written pattern for free on my blog at CelticKnotCrochet.com. But if you're not great with reading patterns, don't worry. I take you through each step of the project here in this video. I will explain to you all the supplies you need to make this. I'll show you how to make this centerpiece and then how to make each spoke and put it all together so you have this beautiful Christmas decoration. So don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and let's get started. Before we make this project, let me explain a few things about how it's put together. First, you could choose to make your project with all white cotton crochet thread, or you could use white and silver or some other colors. The written pattern explains in detail how to use both colors. This is actually very simple to crochet because this section right here will repeat 6 times. So I'm calling these spokes. So we're going to create these little pieces right here and these longer pieces and weave them together. And it's the same process for all 6. And then we're going to attach those with glue to the center hexagon that is only 2 rounds of crochet stitches. And lastly, as an option, you can add the simple chain stitch edging around the snowflake. And then of course we use fabric stiffener to make it nice and stiff so it hangs nicely amongst your decorations. To make the Celtic Star Snowflake, you're going to need a small amount of size 10 white cotton crochet thread. And then if you'd like to make the silver thread accents, I used DMC metallic pearl cotton, and it comes in 25-meter skein like this. And you want to open this up and wind it onto an embroidery thread card. Or you can even do it on an index card. If I'm in a pinch and I don't have these around, you just want to make sure you wind it, because if you try to work from the skein, it'll get all tangled and drive you nuts. You'll want to use a 1.5 millimeter crochet hook. It is pretty tiny there at the top. And then you'll want to use a yarn needle that has a big eye. This will help you weave the knot later. And then you'll want an embroidery needle with a small eye. That goes well with the thread so that you can hide your ends and do some joining without the needle damaging the delicate stitches. You'll also need at least 2 stitch markers. You can keep reusing these for the project. And then you'll want a hot glue gun and some glue sticks. Again, you don't need a lot of glue, but this will help your project be put together very fast. We'll go over the weaving supplies and the stiffening supplies later in the video. And if you need to skip ahead, just look in the description below for the timestamp where you can find that information. To begin our snowflake, we're going to first crochet the center hexagon. And I have here that I do the center with silver embroidery floss or embroidery thread, and then the second row is with the white cotton thread. So from the supplies, I would be using that and this, but for our demonstration, I'm going to be using a medium weight yarn and a larger hook so I can easily show you all the stitches in this tiny hexagon here. So you're going to want to put your slip knot on your hook and chain 5. And then you're going to put your hook into that first chain and do a slip stitch, yarn over, pull through the chain and through the loop on your hook, and that will create a ring. And that's going to be the center of the hexagon. Then you're going to chain 2, and then you're going to work 2 double crochets right into the ring. So one more double crochet is yarn over, put your hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And if you look here on the hexagon, you see that there are a bunch of what looks like petals, and those are 3 double crochet groups, and we need to make 6 of them. Now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to work 3 double crochets into the ring again. Yarn over, put my hook in, and then I'm going to chain 2 again. And I'm going to repeat that 4 more times so that I have a total of 6 3 double crochet groups. Here you can see I've gone around and I have my 6 3 double crochet groups with a chain 2 in between all of them, and that creates the points of the hexagon. And for the last one, I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to slip stitch right in the top of that starting chain 2 that I made to close up the round. And there I have something that looks like this, and it is hard to see those different petals, but once we add stitches into all of these chain 2 spaces, they'll pop out and you'll see the pretty flower shape. And I'm going to cut my yarn and pull the end through to knot it off. So now we're going to start with the second color for the last round. So to begin the next round, I'm going to put my slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to pick any one of these chain 2 spaces. I'll pick this one right here, and I'm going to put my hook in and do a slip stitch to attach the yarn, yarn over and pull through everything. Then I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to work 2 double crochets. So I'm creating more 3 double crochet groups, and that beginning chain 2 counts as my first double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to put 3 more double crochets into this space. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to chain 1. Now I find my next chain 2 space. Again, remember with crochet you can do a lot of it by feel. Use your non-dominant hand and your thumb and middle finger to feel the stitches, and that especially when you're working with the tiny thread. I use my hands and do a lot by feel because it can be hard to see the smaller stitches. And you can also practice this pattern with thick yarn like I'm showing you here to get the hang of it, and then move on to the thinner yarn. So we're going to pick back up with round 2, chain 2 space. I'm going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do 3 double crochets again, all in that same spot. And then I'm going to chain 1. And I will repeat this all the way around in the next 4 chain 2 spaces. 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. And that will complete the center hexagon for my snowflake. I'm about to complete round 2. I've finished my last 3 double, chain 2, 3 double, and I need 1 more chain 1 here at the end, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch in the top of that chain 2 that I started the round with. Insert my hook, yarn over and pull through everything, and then I can cut off the yarn tail and knot it up. So there is our first piece for the snowflake completed. And if you've made it with the thread, it would be this size, a little bit bigger than a quarter. I highly recommend weaving in your ends at this point for the hexagon. So again, you'll be using a smaller needle. Thread the yarn tails onto a needle and then put the needle through the base of the stitches, just to hide it around that center circle. And then you would clip that off. You want to do the same with the other one, and then do the same thing with the two yarn tails from round 2. Just feed the needle through the base on the wrong side of round 2, and then you could go back. I'm skipping this first stitch and then going back like this through here. And because we're stiffening this project, that will glue all of these ends in place, so they should not fall out on you at all. So you'll want to do that for all the yarn tails before you move on. Just makes it easier and quicker. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the oval cords. The oval cords are this section right here, and you need to make 6 of them. And we sew them together before we even start weaving the knots. So again, I'm going to show you with the larger yarn, and you're going to need 2 stitch markers each time you make one of these. So you might choose to make the first step of all 6 at once and then do the second step all at once, or you can complete one at a time. It's up to you. So the first thing you're going to do is put your slip knot on your hook, move that out of the way, and you're going to chain 22. Okay, that's 10. So there we have 22. And now we're going to work in the back bar, or the back bump of the chain. So I have a video explaining this technique all by itself right there, but quickly, you see the front of the chain looks like a braid. If we flip the chain over, it looks like a chain with some bumps. See the bumps? And we're going to skip the first chain and we're going to go under that back bump or back bar. And we're going to do a single crochet. We're going to do another one. We're going to put the hook in under that back bump, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to do a total of 6. So we just did 1, 2, 3, and then we have 4, 5, and 6. So we have the short section of crocheted cord. Next, we're going to cram a bunch of things into this next chain. We're going to do another single crochet. Then we're going to chain 1, and this is where we use the stitch marker. We're going to mark this chain 1 with the stitch marker. And then we're going to do another single crochet in that same stitch right here. And this is going to create the points that are in these oval cord shapes. Next, we're going to do a single crochet in each of the next 10 chains. So 1, 2. So far you have a cord with a little bit here, a point with a stitch marker, and then this long side piece. And now we're going to do another one of those point stitches. So we put our hook into the next stitch, do a single crochet, a chain 1, mark the chain 1 with the stitch marker, and then a single crochet right into that same stitch again. And then here you should have 3 chains left, and we're going to do a single crochet in those last 3 chains. 1, still working in that back bar. By working in the back bar, we get a nice even edge on both sides of the cord. This looks like the top, but then the bottom also looks like the top. So it makes our project look the best. And then we're going to cut off the yarn, pull through the last loop to knot it off, and you should have a cord that looks like this. So I'm calling this the oval cord because we're going to join it together, and that's going to create these shapes. Now, this is an optional step. The whole reason we put these stitch markers in is so we could add the silver thread edging. So I'll show you how to do that, but you might want to keep your snowflake 100% white, and that has its own look too. So I'm going to put my slip knot on my hook of the contrasting color. You don't have to pick silver. Maybe you want to do a really pretty blue for your snowflake. And we're going to start at the beginning of the cord. This is where we began. The shorter end is the end, also with these yarn tails. That's the end. So we want to go to the end without the yarn tails. And now we're going to work in the back loop only. So normally with crochet you put your hook under both of those loops. We're going to go into the back loop only, like that. So you're going to yarn over, pull through the back loop and through the loop on your hook, and that's a slip stitch. And I'm going to do that across until I get to the stitch marker. So put my hook in the back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And you want to do this loosely. You don't want to make them too tight, or it's going to make your oval cord too small, and it won't really work with the design. So now I've reached the chain 1 space where the slip stitch, the stitch marker is, and I'm going to put a slip stitch into that chain 1 space. I'm going to chain 1 again, and then put a slip stitch in that same chain again, and that gives me a nice pointy point. And then we go on and we continue with the slip stitch down the side of the cord. And I'm going to keep going till I get to that chain 1 space that I marked with the stitch marker. Now it's easy to see these things with the thicker yarn, but with the thread it can be hard to see that chain 1 space easily. So that's why we mark it, so it's easy to find at this step. So I put my hook into there, into that chain 1 space, and do a slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch again into that same chain, and then slip stitch across. 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the end. And so now you have a cord that has this nice contrasting edging. And I'm going to cut off a tail, yarn tail, at least 4 to 5 inches, so I have something to work with. And now we're going to sew these ends together so it forms that shape. So what I like to do is I like to take the white yarn tail, and again I'm using a very thick big yarn needle, but you're going to want to use an embroidery needle like this. That way it works well with the tiny thread. And I put the yarn tail on my needle, and then I'm going to go up through the end of the cord on the other side and pull them together like so. And then I'll just do what's called a whip stitch. Go down on one side of the end and up through the other end. You don't need to do it a lot. 2 or 3 times is good. And then I want to make sure that my yarn tail is now on the wrong side. So here is the right side of the cord, and this, see how that looks like the back side with the bumps here and the bumps of the single crochet. And now I'm going to weave in all the ends. It's much easier to do this step now than later, and I'll show you a little trick. So I tie the 2 white yarn tails together in a double knot. That keeps it nice and secure. And then I can do the same thing with the silver. This is blue here. And you just want to make sure the knot's on the wrong side so you can't see it in the front. But this section of the oval cord will be covered in your final snowflake. And then I can weave them both in at the same time, but I'll just show you one for now, and then I would weave them in. Now, one option you can do here, because we'll be using the glue gun later, is you can use the glue gun in this step, because we're not wearing this snowflake. It's just going to be a stiffen decoration. You can take these yarn tails, so it's quicker, and take your glue gun and just glue them down on the back side. And then when you add the stiffener, that will really keep them in place. So you could glue them down right here, glue this one, it's already headed this way. I would just glue it down just a short distance, glue it down, let the glue cool, and then I would cut the yarn right like that. And once you stiffen it, like I said, all those ends will be affixed to the back of the snowflake and no one will know, and you've just made your life easier where you don't have to weave in 4 ends per oval cord section. So that's just a little tip for you. So you want to do this step a total of 6 times so you have these 6 oval cords all ready to go. Lastly, we're going to make the long cords. The long cords are what we add right in here. Here are all the long cords. You'll be making 6. And we add the long cords in here like this around those little oval cords we just made. So these are very simple as well. It's all single crochet. So you're going to want to put your slip knot on your hook, and you're going to chain 54. So you'll have a long chain, and we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to turn the chain over, work in that back bump or back bar, and we're going to skip the first chain, and we're going to put our hook through the second chain and do a single crochet. And we're going to do a total of 27 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and keep going till you get to 27 total. Here I've done the total of 27 single crochets. And now in this next chain, I'm going to do like what I did for the oval cords to make the point. So I'm going to put my hook in, yarn over, and make a single crochet. Then I'm going to chain one, and then I'm going to put single crochet in that same chain again. And that gives me that nice point. And then for the remainder of the chain, I'm going to work single crochets across. And I'll keep working single crochets in that back bar until I have a cord that looks like this. So we have the 27 single crochets there, our point, and then we'll have 25 single crochets on this side. Now I highly recommend wet blocking these cords or steam blocking. So what you do is you just pin them to a surface with a towel, and then you can blast them with the steam from your iron. Just make sure that your iron is about 2 inches above. Or you can soak them in water, pat out the extra water, and then pin them in place just like that and let them dry overnight. You don't have to do that step, but it does help with them laying flat and looking their best in the snowflake. As you can see, they get all twisted. And it would just help you. But that's not necessary. Just a little tip for you. Another tip for when you finish your long cord is that I would take the 2 yarn tails, and you can weave them in if you like, but that can take a while. So do a double knot with these. And then when we go to assemble the snowflake, we can do the same thing. We can glue the ends down just like this, clip off the excess, and then when we stiffen it, they'll be glued again, and we don't have to worry about weaving everything in. Another thing you can do with these cords is you could add the slip stitch edging to these if you wanted, so they looked like these cords. So you would do it in the same way. You'd work in the back loop only, all the way across, and then when you get to the chain 1 space, you do slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch, just like we did at the points for these oval cords. So that's up to you as well. Now we're ready to start weaving the Celtic knot. Okay, now we're ready to weave all the different spokes of the snowflake. And if you look closely here, you can see the oval cord will go there, and then the long cord will be woven in and around that. So you'll want to print out your diagram. This one is for left-handers, and this one here is for right-handers. And then you'll want to get a piece of corkboard, and I like to use one that's about 1/4 inch thick, and I put it on top of a square of styrofoam. You'll want some straight sewing pins, and then you'll want your cords. So I'm going to do a bunch of weaving right here on this section of the diagram and then remove them. Oh, the other thing you're going to need is you're going to need the glue gun and some glue sticks. So this is a hot glue gun. It works really fast and is perfect for this project. Now before you start to weave, it's always good to just take a look at the diagram so your brain kind of knows where everything's going to go. So each spoke is the same. So the red path here is the oval cords that are going to go right there. And then the blue path is the long cords. And if you just want to take your finger and go from the point, and you see you're going to go over, under, over for that side. And then this side you're going to go under, over, under. And that's all we're going to do using these pins. So I'm going to pin the oval cord in place. Now I can see my join should be right here because it's going to be hidden under this cord. So you want to make sure that the join is the bottom right if you're right-handed, and it'll be the bottom left on the other side if you're left-handed. And this diagram is a rough sketch of approximately what your snowflake shape would turn out like. So it's not perfect. Not everything is the exact same size. My hexagon here in the middle is not perfect. But this will help you make the project without getting too confused. So I put the oval cord down on the red section. Then I'm going to take one of the long cords and I'm going to pin the top point in line with the point on the blue path. And now I have these two ends that I'm going to weave through the oval cord. So if I peek at the diagram, I see here I'm going to go under, over, under. So this one is just all under because we don't have that other cord going through there. And I make sure that the right side is facing, so it's not twisted. And I follow along the path like so. And now I'm going to go this way with the other cord. I'll tilt this so you can see better. So if I peek at the diagram, I see that I'm going to be going over, then under this one that we just put in the middle, and then over again. And if you'd like, for this one with the yarn tails, you can weave them onto a needle. I'm just using the big needle, like so. And I'll go under that center cord. And this will help me pull everything through without getting all caught up with my fingers. And it twists a little, so I just want to untwist it. Make sure everything is facing up, like so. And I follow the cord around and pin it in place. And now I'm just going to I'm going to glue all of these crossings here. So I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. So right here where the cords meet up, I'm going to glue them together. Now, in other projects, I've sewn these things together, and if it was a wearable project, you definitely would want to do that. But since we're not wearing this particular snowflake, it's just a decoration, I'm going to pull back the cord. Very small amount of glue is needed. And then place the cord back on top. And you don't have to do every single one because we'll be using the fabric stiffener, which will keep these cords in place. But doing the middle and the two along the edge is helpful because then it's not going to move on you. And I'm going to repeat that process for all 6 of the oval cords and the 6 long cords. And I found it was easier to remove this one from my work surface. So this one is all finished right here. And I'm going to set that aside and do another one. And I'll do all 6 and then meet back up with you so we can put it all together into the snowflake. Now that I have all of my spokes woven, I'm going to get the center hexagon and I'm going to turn it so the wrong side is facing. And I'm going to place it down over the hexagon on the diagram, and you'll see that all the chain 2 spaces should line up in the middle of the spokes. And I'll just put a few pins to hold that in place. And then I'm going to take my woven pieces and turn those over so the wrong side is facing. And I'm going to lay those down and make sure that the ends, and I'll zoom in here for you, that the ends line up with each 3 double crochet group. So you could see here's a 3 double crochet group here and here, and I'm going to place the end of the cord and I'm going to glue it right there, and I'll do that on the other side. And depending on tension, your spokes might be bigger or smaller than mine. It really doesn't matter. Your snowflake will still look pretty. So I'm going to glue like that, using the hot glue gun. And I'll put the 2 small dabs of glue there, and then place both ends right there. And I'll do that all the way around, and then we'll be ready to add this edging, which is just chains and some slip stitches to create these loops. Very simple edging. You could see it here. I just followed the shape of the knot with some simple crochet stitches. Here you can see I've glued all the spokes with their wrong side up, and I did not weave these ends in. So like I told you earlier, I'm just going to tie them in a double knot, like so. And then I can use the glue gun to put a little dollop here and push the ends into, like so. See, one end maybe will go up this way. You don't need a lot of glue when working with thread. Like this. And then trim off the excess, like so. If you didn't weave them in, this is what you want to do here. And then once you have all those ends taken care of, you can remove the snowflake from the diagram, and then we're just going to add that 1 round of edging. Our last step before stiffening the snowflake is to add the simple edging. And you're going to begin about 3 to 4 stitches up from the edge of the center hexagon. And then you're going to work from crossing to crossing. So if you see right here, here is where the 2 cords cross, so we're going to put a slip stitch there. And then we're going to work to the next crossing right here. And then we work to the point, and then we work back down the other side of the spoke. So we want this to extend all the way to the next crossing right here where the 2 cords meet. See that? And then the next place where they meet, and then back down kind of in line with this one across here, and then we'll repeat that around the entire snowflake. So some of these numbers here will vary depending on how big your spoke sections are. So I might do 4 chains here, but you might have to do 5. Here I might do 7, you might do 8, and so forth. But as long as when you work on it, your chains are reaching here with a little bit of space to pull out, and these stay in their space, in their spot with the stiffener, you'll be fine. To begin the edging of the chain stitches, I'm going to put the silver thread as a slip knot on my hook, and then I'm going to start about 4 stitches from the first crossing. So the first crossing is right here, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to put my hook in like so, yarn over and pull through everything, which is a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 4. And I'll see, does that reach? I could use one more. So that's what you want to do. The directions say to chain 4, but if you chain 4 and you can't reach the first crossing, then add one more chain. And then I'm going to slip stitch right here by that first crossing. And I'll just take a look, see? And now I'm going to chain 7. And see, I could use one more. So I'll chain 8. And I'm going to do a slip stitch right around that crossing. Okay, now I'm going to do this bigger section, so I'm going to chain 4. And that should get me about halfway. And then I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to put a slip stitch in that second chain from my hook. And it makes us this little picot. And then I'm going to chain 4 again. And I'm a little short, so I'll just do one more. And then I'm going to slip stitch in that chain 1 space there at that top point. And I want to see how everything looks. Yep, there's a little bit of space to pull that out, but it follows the curve of the spoke pretty nicely. Then I'm going to chain 4 again. Then I'm going to chain 2 and do the picot by putting a slip stitch in the second chain from my hook. Then I'm going to chain 4 again and slip stitch back down here at that chain 1 space at the top of the spoke. And now I'm going to repeat the same thing down the other side of the spoke. Same concept though, chain 4, actually I'll chain 5, then chain 2, create the slip stitch in the second chain from the hook, chain 4. I'm just doing the same thing I did on the other side, just in the opposite order. And I want to see, can I get down to the crossing? Looks like I need 1 or 2 more chains. So it's not rocket science here. You just want to do enough that you can reach to the crossing with your stitches, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to do that chain 7, see how far that reaches, 4, 5, 6, 7. Slip stitch at the next crossing. And it looks like it fits okay. It's a little tight, so what I'll do is I'll undo that slip stitch and do one more chain to give myself a little bit more room. And then I'm going to chain 4 and skip about 3 or 4 stitches. Put a slip stitch in the next stitch. And there I've completed the first spoke with that edging. And then when I go to stiffen it, I'm going to pull these out and hold them in place with pins, and that'll add this nice edging around. Now if you'd like to make your edging even bigger, just make a longer chain. Now we're going to work in the next spoke, and we're going to repeat the same thing, but first, getting to that next spoke, we're going to chain 1 or 2. You might want to chain 3, and then I kind of want to see where they're going to line up, and I want to put my slip stitch in about the same area on the next spoke. See, like that. And now I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to chain 4 and then do a slip stitch here. Then I'm going to chain 7 or 8, put a slip stitch here, and then I'm going to do the chain 4, chain 2 picot, chain 4, maybe chain 5, do a slip stitch in the top, and then chain 4, chain 2 picot, chain 4, and then work my way down. And I'll go all the way around the whole snowflake like that. Now we're ready to stiffen our snowflake. So what I like to do is use the same corkboard that we used before to weave the knots, and a piece of aluminum foil, nice and flat. Then I use a bunch of straight sewing pins, and I label these pins for stiffening projects, because the stiffener does kind of gum up your pins, if you can see right there, and then they're not good to be used elsewhere, but you can use them for all your stiffening projects. And then you'll need the fabric stiffener. I like this one. A little tip for you, I write the date when I buy it, because after maybe 3 or 4 years it stops working and it doesn't look nice on your project. So I dated it so I know next year that I'll want to get a new one if I don't use it up. So you're going to take your snowflake, and this is the right side up, and we're going to put the right side down. And if you want a detailed video of some stiffening tips, you can click right up here. But for this project, what I like to do is pin the center so it's not going to go anywhere. Just a couple pins. And then I take the stiffener. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. And I like to use the bottle as kind of like a paintbrush and paint the back of all of the cords and the back of the edging. And then I weave it in here, brush it in with my finger, and it should dry clear so that my snowflake looks really nice afterwards. And I'm going to do that to all of the silver stitching along the edge, and work it like that. And I like to only put it on the back. A little bit will seep to the front, but by putting it on the back, it keeps a nice color on the front of my project. And then once it's all nice and worked in, I take a pin and pin this pointy part here, and then I like to pin in all of those chain 2 picots that I made. And again, it's hard to see because it's silver on silver, but all those places where I added a nice little chain 2 picot, I put my pin right through that. And then the silver here, I'm gonna pin it so it bends out and away, like so. And then I just want to do that same thing to all the spokes of the snowflake. And then I'm going to let it dry overnight. Now, sometimes what I find is after you let it dry, then you need to do this one more time. Just apply one more layer of the fabric stiffener and let it dry a second night. And then you'll get a really nice stiff snowflake like this one, where it keeps its shape and you can hang it as a decoration. I've stiffened my snowflake. I've put the stiffener on every part of it and pinned, as you can see, pinned all the different parts. So I let it dry overnight. I actually put 2 applications on. So I put the first one on, let it dry for about an hour, and then I put another application of the stiffener on. And now I'm ready to remove all the pins and see what happens, how it looks. And you gently peel it off of the aluminum foil. This is the wrong side. And there we go. So let's move this out of the way. And here is the Celtic Star Snowflake. I love how the silver thread looks with the white. And then the last thing, you can pick either the white thread or the silver, and I cut about an 8-inch piece like so, thread it through the top one of those chain 4 spaces at the point, do a double knot, and you could use a ribbon if you'd like, and there you go. The Celtic Star Snowflake. Here's one with the silver, and here's one that's all white. I hope you enjoyed making the Celtic Star Snowflake. Make sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. I hope you realized that it wasn't as hard as it looked, and that you'll give some of the other snowflake projects on my YouTube channel and in my pattern shop a try. Thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas!